Welcome to Digital Learning, an initiative of Directorate of Collegiate Education, Government of Karnataka. Siddhartha, an Indian novel by Herman Hesse, is prescribed for fourth semester BSc Generic English, Bengaluru City University. In the previous session, we were introduced to the author and the purpose of the author. So this second session will concentrate exclusively on the vocabulary and the glossary part of the novels, or as to say, the most important words or the most difficult words throughout the novel will be explained in this session. I'm Nandana NG, Assistant Professor of English, Government First Aid College, Malleshwaram, Bengaluru. The contents of the session: learning objectives, session outcome. These two pertains to what the student can expect to look forward. Recap of the previous session, teaching vocabulary, glossary, meaning and explanation of the most difficult words. Learning objectives. The learning objectives of this session are teaching of vocabulary, glossary, meaning of difficult words, and explanation of difficult words. This will help the student to understand or comprehend the text better. At the end of the session, the student will be able to identify the relevance of language in literature, how each word conveys precise meaning, and how words alter or change or define the meaning for that matter. The student will be able to comprehend the difficult words in the text. It will in turn enhance vocabulary, word power, and also strengthen his linguistic skills. The student can also look forward to improve his vocabulary, word power, and also fortify his linguistic skills. Let us try to have a small recap session. Herman Hesse, the author of the novel Siddhartha, was born on July 2nd, 1877 in Germany and died on August 9, 1962 in Montagnola, Switzerland. He was a German novelist and a poet awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1946. A visit to India in these years was later reflected in Siddhartha, a novel which was published in 1922. It is a poetic novel set in India at the time of the Buddha about the search for enlightenment. It deals with the spiritual journey of self-discovery of a young man named Siddhartha during the time of Gautama Buddha. Set in the ancient Nepalese city of Kapilavastu, the book follows Siddhartha, a young man who leaves his family in order to attain enlightenment, which is the highest form of human awareness. The word Siddhartha is made up of two words in Sanskrit language. Siddha means achieved and Artha, what was searched for. So together it means he who has found meaning of existence or who has attained his goals. Now let us try to have a look at the glossary. Please remember the entire, I would definitely advise or suggest to all the students to go through the novel. Primary text is of utmost importance. Only when you read the novel, you will get a clear understanding of what is it that the author is trying to say. But as you read, you might come across many words of which you find it difficult to comprehend the meaning of. So in this session, I have listed out most of the words which have occurred in the course of the novel, which the student, undergraduate student, might find it difficult to, find the meaning for. So I have tried to make a list of all the words, and not only the meaning of the words for that matter, the particular sentence in which the word occurs, that also has been reflected here so that you will understand the text better. I definitely urge you all to please read the novel. The first word, ablution. The meaning of the word is the act of washing oneself for ritual purposes. So the sentence that occurs that in the novel is the sun browned his slender shoulders on the river bank while bathing at the holy ablutions at the holy sacrifices. Lofty means of high moral or intellectual value. Love stirred in the hearts of the young Brahmin's daughter when Siddhartha walked through the streets of the town with his lofty brow, his king-like eyes, and his slim figure. Avaricious means immoderately desirous of acquiring something. Govinda knew that he could not become an ordinary Brahmin, a lazy sacrificial official, an avaricious dealer in magic sayings can be used as also saying greedy. Atonement, the act of making amends for sin or wrongdoing. Wandering along the rosy paths of the fig garden, sitting in contemplation in the bluish shade of the grove, washing his limbs in the daily bath of atonement. Discontent, it means showing or experiencing dissatisfaction or restless longing. Siddhartha had begun to feel the seeds of discontent within him. Transient, it means temporary, lasting a very short time. Were not the gods formed, created like me and you, mortal, transient? Consciousness, an alert cognitive state in which you are aware of yourself. It was not flesh and bone, it was not thought or consciousness. Penetrate, it means pass into or through, often by overcoming resistance. It says that when a man is asleep, he penetrates his innermost and dwells in Atman. Sage means a mentor in spiritual and philosophical topics. There was a wonderful wisdom in these verses. All the knowledge of the sages was told here in an enchanting language. Insatiable means impossible to fulfill, appease, or gratify. Was he not also a seeker? Insatiable. Quench means satisfy as thirst. It often seemed near the heavenly world, but never had he quite reached it, never had he quenched the final thirst. Ascetic, someone who practices self denial as a spiritual discipline. Wandering ascetics, or nearest word in Kannada would be sannyasis. Wandering ascetics, they were the three thin, worn out men, neither old nor young. Blanch means turn pale as if in fear. Govinda blanched as he heard these words and read the decision. Resignation, the act of giving up as a claim or office or possession. As quick as lightning, he read Govinda's soul, read the anxiety, the resignation. Disillusionment means freeing from false belief. If you find disillusionment, come back and we shall again offer sacrifices to the gods together. Sway means move back and forth. Siddhartha swayed as he tried to walk. Pilgrim, Yatri, someone who journeys to a sacred place as an act of devotion. A crouching shadow emerged from the last hut and joined the pilgrim. Allegiance means the act of binding yourself to a course of action. On the evening of that day, they overtook the Samanas and requested their company and allegiance. Cloak, it means a loose outer garment. Siddhartha gave his clothes to a poor Brahmin on the road and only retained his lion cloth and earth colored unstitched cloak. Illusion, it means an act of deception considered magical by naive observers. The drinker does indeed find escape. He does indeed find a short respite and rest, but he returns from the illusion and finds everything as it was before. The meaning of illusion in Kannada, the nearest word would be brahme. Decay, the organic phenomenon of rotting. So the sentence there, all were doomed to decay. Dismember, it means separate the limbs from the body. He became a dead jackal, lay on the shore, swelled, stank, decayed, and was dismembered by hyenas. Chasm, a deep opening in the earth's surface. He waited with new thirst like a hunter at a chasm where the life cycle ends, where there is an end to causes, where painless eternity begins. Torment, it means intense feelings of suffering, acute mental or physical pain. Siddhartha again felt the torment of the onerous life cycle. Onerous means burdensome or difficult to endure. Siddhartha again felt the torment of the onerous life cycle. Expedition means a journey organized for a particular purpose. Siddhartha asked at the beginning of one of these expeditions. Palliative, it means a remedy that elevates pain without curing. It is a temporary palliative against the pain and folly of life. Respite, which means a pause from doing something. The drinker does indeed find escape. He does indeed find a short respite and rest. Nirvana, this is the most important word to the course of the novel. Nirvana means the beatitude that transcends the cycle of reincarnation. Nirvana is nothing but what you achieve, or the ultimate salvation or moksha for that matter. And Siddhartha said he's 60 years old and has not yet attained nirvana. Ravage means cause extensive destruction or ruin utterly, just as when a country is ravaged with a plague. Benefactor means a person who helps people or institutions. Many, however, immediately go on their way to seek the wise man, the benefactor. Illustrious means widely known and esteemed. They heard from many sources a rumor, a report that someone had appeared called Gautama, the illustrious, the Buddha. Disciple, Shishya, one who believes and helps spread the doctrine of another. They saw Gautama return, saw him take his meal within the circle of his disciples. Consolation, the act of giving relief in affliction. We find consolation, we learn tricks in which we deceive ourselves, but the essential thing, the way we do not find. Austere, of a stern or strict bearing or demeanor. How could it be that among so many learned men, among so many Brahmins, among so many austere and worthy Samanas, among so many seekers, none will find the right way? Mortification, it means the act of denying lusts of the flesh, especially by bodily pain. He passed his days in high living, scorned the sacrifices, was unlearned, and knew neither practices nor mortification of the flesh. Indebted, owing gratitude to another for help or favors. This fruit, for which we are already indebted to Gautama, consists in the fact that he has enticed us away from the Samanas. Partake, it means consume. They partook of food, and Siddhartha asked the lady who handed him the food. Sojourn, it means a certain length of time, reside temporarily. The woman said, "You have come to the right place, O Samanas from the forest. The illustrious one sojourns in Jetavana in the garden of Anantapindika." Astound, it means affect with wonder. At sunrise, they were astounded to see the large number of believers and curious people who had spent the night there. Unassuming means not arrogant. He saw him bearing an alms bowl, quietly leaving the place, an unassuming man in a yellow cowl. Countenance, it means the appearance conveyed by a person's face. The Buddha went quietly on his way, lost in his thought. His peaceful countenance was neither happy nor sad. Demeanor, it means the way a person behaves towards other people. The two Samanas recognized him only by his complete peacefulness of demeanor. Coherent, it means marked by an orderly and consistent relation of parts. Surely every Brahmin's heart must beat more quickly when through your teachings he looks at the world completely coherent without a loophole. Exalted, it means of high moral or intellectual value. This shines clearly from your exalted teachings, O perfect one. Enlighten, give spiritual insight too. You have done so by your own seeking in your own way, through thought, through meditation, through knowledge, through enlightenment. Equanimity means steadiness of mind under stress. The Buddha's eyes were lowered, his unfathomable voice expressed complete equanimity. Relinquish, it means turn away from or give up. Do you think, O Samana from afar, that it would be better for all this to relinquish or to give away the teachings and to return to the life of the world and desires? Imperturbable. It is marked by extreme calm and composure. Half smiling with imperturbable brightness and friendliness, the Buddha looked steadily at the stranger and dismissed him with a hardly visible gesture. Nucleus, the positively charged dense center of an atom. The nucleus of all things, Atman, life, the divine, the absolute. In context, the word simply means a center, that is the middle. Asceticism, the doctrine of renunciation of worldly pleasures. I will no longer study yoga, Veda, Atharva Veda, or asceticism or any other teachings. Aristocracy, it means a privileged class holding hereditary titles. He was no nobleman belonging to any aristocracy, no artisan belonging to any guild and finding refuge in it, sharing its life and language. Enthralled means filled with wonder and delight. Siddhartha learned something new on every step of his path, for the world was transformed and he was enthralled. Fleeting, it means lasting for a markedly brief time. But in previous times, all this had been nothing to Siddhartha but a fleeting and elusive veil before his eyes. Ostracize, it means to expel from a community or group. Regarded with distrust, condemned to be disregarded and ostracized from the thoughts because it was not reality. Linger, it means to remain present, although waning or gradually dying. But now his eyes lingered on his side. He saw and recognized the visible and he sought his place in the world. Erudition, it means profound scholarly knowledge. No, this world of thought was still on his side, and it led to no goal when one destroyed the senses of the incidental self but fed it with thoughts and erudition. Intoxicate, that is, make drunk with alcoholic drinks. A simplest explanation would be it was intoxicating. The feeling of high a person derives when he consumes alcoholic drinks. Subservient, compliant and obedient to authority. All are subservient, all wish to be my friend, to obey and to think little. Benediction. It means a blessing or ceremonial prayer invoking divine protection. He called across a benediction as is customary among travelers and asked how far the road still was to the large town. Circuitous, deviating from a straight course or going about in a roundabout way. Siddhartha was led away by the servant, conducted by a circuitous route to a garden house. Indolent, in disinclined to work or exertion. Kamaswami is beginning to grow old and indolent. Declivity, a downward slope or bend. Siddhartha wandered along a strange, twisted path of this last and most base declivity through the game of dice. Fervor means feelings of great warmth and intensity. Siddhartha began to play dice for money and jewels with increasing fervor. Squander means spend thoughtlessly or throw away. He derived a passionate pleasure through the gambling away and squandering of wretched money. Contempt means lack of respect accompanied by a feeling of intense dislike. In no other way could he show more clearly and mockingly his contempt for the riches. Deity means a supernatural being worshipped as controlling the world. In no other way could he show more clearly and mockingly his contempt for riches, the false deity of businessmen. Prudent, marked by sound judgment. Kamaswami came in a supple, lively man with graying hair, with clever, prudent eyes, and a sensual mouth. Pallid, lacking in vitality or interest or effectiveness. There was pain in her face. Siddhartha read the pain in her mouth in her pallid face. Pious, having or showing or expressing reverence for a deity. The father was a good man, a kind gentleman, perhaps a pious man, perhaps a holy man. Satiated, supplied, especially fed to satisfaction. In this feeling alone did he experience some kind of happiness, some kind of excitement, some heightened living in the midst of his satiated, tepid, insipid existence. Tepid, feeling or showing little interest or enthusiasm. In the midst of his satiated, tepid, insipid existence. Insipid, lacking interest or insignificance or impact, living in the midst of a satiated, tepid, insipid existence. Oblivion. Oblivion means total forgetfulness. Only at daybreak and at the first signs of activity outside his townhouse did he doze off and had a few moments of semi oblivion, a possibility of sleep contemptuously, without respect, in a disdainful manner. He saw how he had arrogantly and contemptuously looked back on his Samana days, how he had proudly and eagerly begun his worldly life. Vitality, a healthy capacity for vigorous activity. He saw life, vitality, the indestructible, and Brahman in all their desires and needs. Tenacity, persistent determination. These people were worthy of love and admiration in their blind loyalty, in their blind strength and tenacity. Verge come close to Siddhartha in conflict with himself, verging on despair and no less inclined to laugh aloud at himself and the whole world. Desolate, crushed by grief, how flat and desolate his path had been. Ennui, the feeling of being bored by something tedious. He was full of ennui, full of misery, full of death. There was nothing left in the world that could attract him, that could give him pleasure and solace. Rejuvenate, make younger or look more youthful. Never had a sleep so refreshed him, so renewed him, so rejuvenated him. Revered, profoundly honored. I was in search of a Brahman and revered the eternal in Atman. Yearning, prolonged unfulfilled desire or need. It sang with yearning and sadness flowing towards its goal. Expiation, the act of atoning for sin or wrongdoing. As a young man, I was attracted to expiation. Trickle, run or flow slowly, as in drops or in an unsteady stream. Incontrollable tears trickle down his old face. Wretched, morally reprehensible. He derived a passionate pleasure through the gambling away and squandering of wretched money. Benevolence, disposition to do good. He preached benevolence, forbearance, sympathy, patience, but not love. Forbearance, good natured, tolerance of delay or incompetence. He preached benevolence, forbearance, sympathy, patience, but not love. Presentiment, a feeling of evil to come. Although surprised, Govinda was compelled by a great love and presentiment to obey him. He leaned close to him and touched his forehead with his lips. Veneration, a feeling of profound respect for someone or something. He was overwhelmed by a feeling of great love of the most humble veneration. The references used for this